Welcome everybody. I hope people can hear me. My name's Ruth Goldstein and I'm a public health consultant working for Cornwall Council. And my role at the Cornwall Council is to support mental wellbeing and particularly to look at our suicide prevention work and make sure that we as a council are trying to support the population of Cornwall as much as we can towards in the area of suicide prevention. Today, as I hope everybody's here waiting to listen to, is going to be the finale of our Towards Zero events that we've been running this week. It's by no means the end of our suicide prevention work, and hopefully it gives us another step on that ladder towards doing a lot more work in this area, which is certainly needed. During the week, we've run a daily webinar like this, which has been recorded and is going to be available at a later date on our web pages of Cornwall Council. And we've covered things like safety planning. We've looked at children and young people, sports and the role that physical activity plays with mental well-being. And then yesterday, which was actually World Suicide Day, the whole session was focused on hope and bringing an element of hope into people's lives and how we can do that. And so today, the format for today is going to be really, the bulk of today is going to be about people asking us questions, anything that you want to know about the work that we're doing in Cornwall. If you've got any questions around mental wellbeing or mental ill health that we might be able to answer would be great. On the panel today, we've got Ellen Wilkinson, who is a consultant psychiatrist, and she has a very particular interest in sort of many years experience working within suicide prevention. So she was actually the person that I was first introduced to when I came to Cornwall with this around this work, and I was totally knocked off my feet by both Ellen's knowledge, her experience, and her energy in this area. So she's been a real shining light in my career progression here. We've also got Dean Harvey, who is a community development officer working for Pentreath, working particularly with Black, Asian, minority and ethnic community around inclusion and diversity specifically. And actually we've just been having a really fantastic discussion before we've gone live now, all about inclusivity and how we think we're including everybody, but actually we're putting barriers up to people, which hopefully we can get into a broader discussion in a little while. We've also got Paula Chappell on the panel today, and Paula is the person within my team at Cornwall Council who does all the sort of hands-on suicide prevention work. Paula's been only with us for about 18 months, but is a complete breath of fresh air to the team and to this area, and has really being an absolute shining light in helping us provide support and services in the right areas to head us well towards the Towards Zero initiative. So the format for today particularly is going to be, and we've got some small presentations to show you, which will take about 15 minutes, around how we have used some specific funding that we've received around suicide prevention, and hopefully that will start stimulating some ideas. And then what we're going to really ask you as an audience to do is to put some questions into the chat box for us. Anything you want to ask. If we can't answer it, we'll be totally honest and say that's not to be discussed now, or we'll get back to you if we don't know the answers. But anything around suicide prevention, mental wellbeing, mental ill health that will help people head us towards zero aim that I know everybody feels so passionately about. Before I go any further though, I'm getting the hairy eyeball from people here. I do just need to do a little bit of housekeeping for this session. So first of all, the whole session is going to be recorded so that we can then use it at a later date. It will be then put onto Cornwall Council's website so that anybody can pick it up at any time. So because it's going to be recorded, we need to ask everybody if they will make sure you've got your microphones on mute so we don't pick up any dog barking or any kids asking for things or the telephone ringing. And also if people can make sure that they're not going to be distracted by their own telephones ringing, that would be great. So if you can turn your Teams onto mute, if you can turn your telephones onto mute, and then also if we can ask people not to use their cameras. We'll use our cameras as a panel so that you can see us when we're answering your questions, but ideally if people don't put their cameras on during the presentation, that just means we've got a better chance of everybody being able to hear the presentations better. And please do put questions into the chat box. During the week we've done this now 4 times around this time, and I know we've had some fantastic fantastic discussions and some really great questions from people. So I would encourage you to put questions into the box as often as you want to. So I'm going to hand over now to Ellen, who's going to just give a brief sort of background as to how in Cornwall we have been trying to support suicide prevention over the last few years, and we'll take it from there. So thank you everybody for being here, and please don't forget that we are being recorded, so we just need to keep reminding you of that. Over to Ellen.
Thank you, Ruth. People may be aware that we have had some extra funding for suicide prevention in England. That's for quite a sad reason, which is that we're at the top of a league table that nobody really wants to be at the top of, in terms of the rate of suicides per head of population. We aren't at the top actually in the 2019 figures, but we're still very near the top. So we got into wave one, and we're now in the third year of that funding. And we started with sort of 3 fairly simple projects. They haven't been quite as simple as we thought they would be, but the first is an intervention after people had self-harmed, so after people had been admitted to hospital. The second is a sports intervention, and you heard quite a good description about that on Wednesday. And the third was a training programme for the primary care team. So extremely important that when we're trying to encourage people to come forward with symptoms of mental ill health, that actually the places that people approach are equipped and ready to help, to assess, and to offer things like safety planning. So the second year safety planning was involved, and we also had some in-school interventions. So really important in prevention is actually those universal things that help young people and families to talk about their mental health. And we've got a third year now coming, and that includes a number of bids for small projects, which we're going to talk about next. So this is the Suicide Prevention Innovation Fund for our third year of funding. And I think I'm handing over to Paula to talk about those.
Thanks, Ellen. So yes, I'm just going to give you a brief update on what's happening with that innovation fund. We, due to some of the not quite so simple things around getting the project started, it has meant that we have had a little bit of an underspend in our budget, and we as a steering group came up with the idea of offering that fund out to community organisations in Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly to tell us innovative ways that they could come up with for focusing on suicide prevention. We tasked those community organisations with bidding for the funding, focusing on reducing suicide by middle-aged men, by people in treatment services, and reducing self-harm within local communities. And we were really blown away by the amount of applications that we received. There were 46, and that really demonstrates the level of support that there is for this important topic within our county. So we were really pleased to see that. So we asked each of those organisations if they could send a bit of information in for us about what their project will be. They're going to get started really quickly. And so I'm going to show you a few slides and a couple of videos around those projects, and you can get to hear a little bit more about what is going to be starting really soon within the county.
WILD is a charity that works across Cornwall to support young parents and their children to live healthy, happy, safe lives. Many of the young fathers working with WILD face enormous disadvantages, such as childhood trauma, mental ill health, substance misuse, poverty, homelessness, and unemployment. The Suicide Innovation Fund is supporting a new project within Wild called Towards Zero with Young Fathers. Wild works with young fathers during a pivotal period in their life, and with the support of the Innovation Fund, we will be able to raise awareness around suicide prevention and self-harm reduction, reducing stigma and risk factors and increasing protective factors. In doing so, we aim to help young men build resilience during their parenting journey and on into the rest of their adult life. Paternal resilience is an often neglected idea, but one that can be essential in building our children's resilience and in addressing gendered and intergenerational mental health inequalities. Towards Zero with Young Fathers implements a two-pronged approach in support of broader national and local efforts towards zero suicides. The first is to develop the direct work we do with young fathers, and we'll be doing this through specific workshops centred on suicide prevention and self-harm, through resilience-focused, activity-based one-to-one and group work, such as working on our allotment and facilitating music sessions, giving young fathers opportunities to engage in meaningful activities which promote health and well-being. And we'll also be looking at adapting and implementing suicide and self-harm action plans for those young fathers Wild staff are most concerned about. The second approach we're implementing involves raising our organisational awareness of Towards Zero suicides, as well as broader understanding of suicide and self-harm on parenting. And we'll be doing this through monthly staff training, monthly group supervision, and by developing clear pathways and policies about suicide prevention and self-harm reduction for young fathers working with Wild. At Wild, we are really excited about this new project, and we'd like to take this opportunity to say a big thank you to the Suicide Innovation Fund for recognising and supporting the work we do alongside our county's young fathers.
Okay, so that was Wild Young Parents Project, telling us about their project. Next, we've got Live West, who are planning an in-house suicide and self-harm awareness training workshops for their residents and their customers of their support project. They run a number of supported accommodation services across the county, and they support young people, young parents, homeless families, people with mental health issues. So a number of really vulnerable people, and so their plan is to spread the word about how to talk safely around suicide, how to ask for help, and that sits alongside really nicely along their staff delivering holistic support to vulnerable people.
Make It Better CIC, or MIPBA for short, supports communities to live well through the arts. We believe that a little bit of creativity every day helps us to live happy and healthy lives. We're delighted to offer smartphone photography projects in St Austell, Redroof, Falmouth and St Ives, supported by Cornwall Council's Suicide Prevention Innovation Fund. We're offering workshops for people vulnerable to suicide. All you need is a smartphone or device to take part. The sessions explore skills like composition, exposure, editing, sharing and sending photographs, as well as the legal rights and responsibilities of photographers. Each week we offer demonstrations, presentations and reflective challenges to show and tell at the following session. We believe that connecting to others through these activities allows us to share difficult feelings creatively and helps to reduce stress and anxiety. After the initial workshops, we will join in with our established groups who meet up independently each month to go for a walk and capture their local landscape. Meanwhile, at mip.com, people can take part in the monthly smartphone photography challenge. At the end of the project, we will have a high-profile show of participants' prints at an accessible location, because taking part in professional exhibitions and sharing work in the community raises self-esteem and confidence. The benefits of this project will be greater than helping participants become better at taking photographs. These projects work because they help people become more independent, increasing their positive experiences of digital technology and gaining the confidence to learn more transferable skills. At MIPBA, we recognise the fundamental value of contributing to and looking after our culture. It is our role to protect this human right. We aim to help vulnerable people reconnect to communities by accessing high-quality arts activities.
The next on our list is the Pathfinder programme, and they are starting an outdoor learning programme covering aspects of survival and wilderness experiences, and it's designed so it's accessible for all abilities and ages, from primary school age children right through to retired persons as well, so covering all sorts of age spans there. And it's come about after discussions with local police about how to work better with engaging those students in schools, but also people in the community who need someone to talk to. So we look forward to hearing more about that from them as their programme gets started too. The next is a video from Penhaligon's Friends.
Hello, I'm Dooley and I'm the CEO at Penhaligon's Friends, Cornwall's children's bereavement charity. When I became aware of the funding available through the Suicide Prevention Innovation Fund, it made me think about what our charity could do to help bring down the statistics. Bereavement is a risk factor for suicide, and we have a unique audience of adults that get in touch with us, predominantly to access support for their bereaved child. And of course, we're able to do that. But what else could we do? So we've developed a number of projects that we want to bring in over the next 12 months. The first is a Dad's Pack, which is a resource that we will send out to any of the dads that get in touch with us. It will have some emotional well-being ideas and resources within the pack, some little treats to help them to indulge themselves and to look after themselves, and also some signposting to agencies that might be out there that they could access if they feel that they need to. Alongside of that, we will produce a leaflet for men, for dads, to include all of those signposting tips and tools, and also some advice on how to look after themselves and recognise if they are struggling, and letting them know it's okay actually to feel like that. And through feedback from dads in particular that we've spoken to who have accessed our support over the years, they've told us that it's not the moment when it happens. They do feel supported after those initial days following bereavement, and are able to access the support at that time. But moving forward 12 months down the line, when for them their bereavement is still very much a reality, other people have moved on, and it's then that they feel that they're most vulnerable, they're most isolated. So as a charity, we want to factor in some social days out to encourage dads to come along and meet other people, connect with others that have been through a similar experience, and through that more informal route of access to just get peer support, to be able to talk to our Penhaligon's team of staff and volunteers, and to talk to other bereaved parents, and process and acknowledge some of those things that they have been going through, and still feel that they have a sense of belonging somewhere, and that actually when they come and spend the day with us, it's okay to talk about these things, or it's okay not to talk about these things, but just to be present amongst others who know and understand how you feel. So these 3 projects we're going to start rolling out now over the next 12 months, and we're really looking forward to getting feedback from the dads in particular as to how they feel that this project has been helpful for them. Thanks.
This next video then is from Volunteer Cornwall about their Hope programme.
Hello, my name is Marianne and I work for Volunteer Cornwall. I'm here to introduce to you our Hope programme. HOPE is Help Overcoming Problems Effectively. It's a programme devised by Coventry University, predominantly to help people with long-term illnesses, long-term medical conditions. However, now it's now been expanded to a much wider range of groups and activities. Why do we feel we need this? Well, in the last 6 months, we've worked with nearly 4,000 people, and we have understood that many of them have got very complex needs, and they need more than just a one-off shopping trip. We've also recognised that a lot of people with those greater needs have greater levels of depression, anxiety, and thoughts of suicide have been quite common. So HOPE is a programme which we are now developing to go online in order to reach as many people as possible, to help people form their own social bubbles online, but also to help them devise their own goals in order to help them become more independent and hopefully give them a peer group. It's a 6-week programme, and it's 2.5 hour session per week. And this will be, as I say, on either using Zoom or Teams or other technology. Some of them may also be face-to-face sessions. There will also always be 2 facilitators on each session, and we are currently on the lookout for anybody who would like to be a facilitator. So it's as a volunteer to give up your time, but you'll be fully trained, and you'll have everything that you need to either to support one of our groups, or also to set up your own groups and run the HOPE programme. The research so far has shown that at the end of the HOPE programme, the research so far has shown that at the end of the HOPE programme, at the end of those 6 weeks, those people become firm friends, and they keep in contact with each other for at least 6 months, sometimes a year later. They're still having that contact and that peer support. And this will help not only their general health and their well-being, but also reduces the stress on our services as well. So if you'd like to find out more about the HOPE programme, please contact me at Volunteer Cornwall. That's Marianne W at volunteercornwall.org.uk, or contact phone 01872 266 987. Thank you.
My ability to fidget there, sorry about that, interrupting the video. Man Down are also an organisation who have been successful in receiving funding from us to run their fortnightly group support meetings across Cornwall, and then currently they have 18 locations across the county, and they're expanding to reach the goal of 33 locations to provide coverage for all of those who need it. I think they are quite a popular organisation. I think lots of people have heard of them, but they are to support men who want to talk about their feelings and are a useful suicide prevention resource in the county. A couple more videos for you.
Hi, my name's Jay, and I work for Chaos, running the Men Outside project. So what we cover is we bring guys down into the grounds here, and in particular we're looking at bushcraft for a period of time where they're going to be exploring lots of different techniques like fire lighting, using knives and axe work, and primitive skills. So it's a great opportunity for people to come down, use some skills they may have picked up in the past and learn new ones. So I think it's any secret that we know working in the outdoors is really good for everyone's mental health. And I think it's really important that people who may be struggling in life get the opportunity to come down, reset themselves using nature, in great company, learning some skills, and then help to rebuild their confidence and enthusiasm about getting on with life and moving forwards. Rabbits, they're quite smart. So it's very simple. If you go online, check out the Chaos Farm website, where you can then register your interest, come along and get involved. So this is an upside down fire. Right. Did you want to?
The bench is really simple making. It looks like a normal public bench. On one of the sound files, we have the collection of sounds that people have identified as the ones that make them the calmest and the happiest. And on the other one, we have another sound file, which is sounds made up from what's known as solfeggio scales. In essence, they're tones and frequencies which allow the brain to respond in a positive, more relaxed state. But when you start to think about it, the sound environment has a massive impact on us, well-being impact. So a really popular sound is cats purring. Another one is the waves. Another one is bird song. How beautiful the coastline is and how busy and vibrant it can be. But then underneath the surface of that, there's a real need for well-being to be acknowledged and to be nurtured. Conversations need to be happening. There's potential for behaviour change through sound. Maybe these go-to spots can then become healing spots rather than harming spots.
Okay, so that's a brief summary of all of the 9 projects that are have been successful in accessing some funding from us for their suicide prevention project. We're asking them to get started as quickly as possible for a period of 12 months, and we're going to ask them to report to us on the progress of their work, and then the information that we get back from them will feed into our suicide prevention steering group, and we hope then to offer supportive opportunity for the projects to meet, share good practice, problem solve as well in the future, and use the information that we find from this towards our projects in the future. It's just so interesting and so exciting to have these brand new projects that are about to get started within the county, and we're really looking forward to hearing about how they progress.
Right, so thank you ever so much, Paula, for that, and I hope that has whetted everybody's appetite about the types of things that we're doing. I put a little comment in there. We were totally blown away by the 46 projects which we reviewed. It took several days to go through the bids, several attempts. If we had 7 times the amount of money, we could have spent it really successfully. So we have no doubt that Cornwall is full of innovation and people with really good ideas as to what they can what they can do to help support the Towards Zero initiative. One thing that's common to all of these is about connecting with people. That really came through to me in those presentations from the ones that we've discovered, and different ways to connect with different groups of people. And I know it's really glib, but our, How Are You Really Feeling campaign, which we've been running now for the last several years, trying to encourage people to talk about some of those taboo subjects and don't just accept the, yeah, I'm fine, thank you, and then walk away. If everybody had a group of people that they felt they belonged to, that they felt that they could talk to, that they felt it was okay to be really open with, I think we'd get a really long way to preventing suicides and towards Zero ambition. prohibition. Sadly, there are a lot of the population who just don't feel connected, just feel isolated, don't feel that they can have that level of conversation. And the idea of a lot of these innovation projects and some of the others, which we unfortunately can't fund at the moment, is about trying to find space and a group of people so that everybody can find some connectivity, which is so important. So I'd like to open up the discussion now. I think Darren, you came up with a really good question. Your first question that I think is at the top of the chat box about additional funding being made available by the government for mental health issues. So if I can just ask Paula and Dean and Ellen's now, if we can all put our screens, if we can put our videos on, I think that would be useful. And if I just start the answer to that question about has the government recognised the sort of the mental health impacts of COVID, essentially, because I think that's really what you're asking, Darren, and is there going to be additional funding available? I think the government have recognised the need for additional support because of the COVID issue. And I know we were discussing earlier about it's not a one size fits all. You know, some people will report quite positively about the effects of lockdown on their mental well-being, giving them some time and some space. Other people feel that it's put them into being in a very vulnerable position, having to spend more time with people that maybe don't understand them, don't understand who they are and how they feel. Some people using that time to actually explore some of their mental health and finding new ways to support them. So it is an issue which is, you know, as I said, one size doesn't fit all. I know in Cornwall we've now got a much closer connection with our primary care mental health commissioners, and we're talking much more openly about, as part of the recovery phase from COVID, about what we need to do to make sure that we don't lose the mental health impact of lockdown, and that we do actually make sure that we provide people with avenues both through the statutory and the voluntary sector, so that nobody keeps their feelings hidden and nobody just goes, oh, that's all okay, COVID's come and gone and we can just get on with it now. I think it has had an impact on everybody, and will continue to have an impact on everybody, and it's really important for all of our mental well-being in the future that we do continue to have those conversations about how you're actually feeling about this, and what you're going to do to try and help each other deal with the uncertainty of something like a pandemic that we're all living through. The question you actually asked was about funding, and I'm hopeful that there will be some rebalancing in terms of financial support for the mental well-being agenda, as well as for the physical well-being agenda that's come out of COVID. There are small shoots of that showing at the moment, but what that will look like in the future, I can't actually say. We were going to have somebody from the NHS England on our panel today who might have been able to answer that better than I can, but unfortunately they had to pull out at the last minute because of a personal situation. I don't know whether anybody else has got anything that they want to add to that.
I guess it'd be a good opportunity to bring Dean in, if you're there, Dean. I can't see you on the screen, about perhaps some of those differential effects of the pandemic on some populations.
I think it is a recognition of the social context, really, for people. So before COVID, we had our marginalised communities, our hard to reach communities, our minority communities, however we want to describe them. So, and now COVID has amplified some of the struggles, then it's worth recognising the existing struggles that some people already had. So, and the effects that that's having. And on individual communities, so before we looked at those videos, which were absolutely amazing, which just made me smile that there is so much hope out there generally. But we were talking about the context, and we were talking around communities of colour and black communities and what has happened to them on top of the COVID situation. So the Black Lives Matter movement and the hostile environment and the backlash from that. That's just one example, I think, of that on top of COVID, people are struggling with other profound issues as well, and we'll get into these perfect storms for many minority communities. I think it's really worth acknowledging that. That's not acknowledging one group to the exclusion of all other groups. We are bigger than that, but it is worth recognising that people's struggles are slightly different, and in that recognition enables us to sort of reduce some of the stigma and taboo around different communities.
I think it's also interesting that we won't just go back to how we were. Even when we have a vaccine and people are working in different ways to how they are, we won't necessarily go back to how we are. So there is that recognition that will impact on our mental health. There's, I think Kelly's putting in the chat box a link to a tracker, a mental wellbeing tracker that's been released by Public Health England, about how the pandemic has affected people and affected their wellbeing on those many different levels, as you were already saying, Ruth, about how for some people it's been an opportunity to slow down. It's been a chance to kind of recalibrate almost. But for other people, it's been a very different reality, and the scale of that. So I think that'd be quite interesting if people want to take a look at that.
And I guess it prompts me to think about the projects and how individually they're going to be inclusive, and how they're going to be co-produced, and how they're going to be involving the people who will use and benefit from them in their development. So I think that's really exciting prospect.
Yeah, I think one of the problems we've always struggled with, and we haven't got an answer to, is, and it blows me away every time I look at things like our wellbeing directory of how many organisations there are in Cornwall who are offering some element of mental wellbeing support to people. And actually, if you look through that, if any of you have done the assist training that we offer through the council, you know that you get that hard copy at the end, and it's actually available online through our web pages now, and it must have about 100 and something organisations who offer an element of wellbeing support to different groups of the population. You know, the 46 applications that we had for really an incredibly small amount of funding shows the diversity of what's available. But there are two issues, aren't there? We can offer a lot, but how can we make that support accessible so that it gets to the right people, so that people feel able to access it, and when they do access it, so they feel included in whatever's going on. We were discussing earlier about, I moved to Cornwall a couple of years ago, and just trying to find groups of people that I felt connected to, either through religion or through hobbies or through work, is actually quite challenging. I'm quite a confident person, but actually walking to a room of other people who all know why they're there and all know each other, and trying to say, oh, can I come and join your community, please? I think I need some help, or I need some support. We have a lot to offer, but is it always available to the people who really need it? And that availability may be putting barriers up, which I, as somebody who's offering support, maybe don't actually see. So I think that co-production, that trying to understand about how you can attract the right people, how you can make them feel instantly part of whatever's going on, so that we remove any of the stigma and any of the barriers to accessing both statutory and third sector support, is just so absolutely important, because we have got so much out there, but it is about trying to make sure that the right people feel that they can access it, that they are included, and that it is for them. I think that's absolutely key. Gosh, there's lots of typing going on in the chat bar, which I can't quite keep up with. Let's see what other people have been saying. So I think we will definitely be able to share updates on all of the pieces of work which we've just talked about through the Towards Zero newsletter. And I think if anybody has got any questions about any of the individual projects, I would encourage you to contact Paula Chappell at the council here, because she can help put you in contact if you want to understand more. She's definitely our key link with all of this work. And her details and how to contact her will be sent out to everybody, is always sent out to everybody as part of the Towards Zero newsletters. So please, you don't have to look long and hard to get that information, and we will try and keep people up to date with what's going on. I think, Anne, you've been making some very valid comments about communication, and I think that it is the communication that goes around what's available in Cornwall and how we can make sure that it is accessible to people, and also that it's everybody's responsibility to ask an individual how they are and remove that taboo about people not talking about their mental health and their mental ill health. And you'll notice, and this isn't a dig at the male population at all, but you'll notice how a lot of the projects which we are supporting are male orientated, and that is sadly because we do still see that our suicide data does sadly is skewed towards men, and that there are so many reasons for that, but we know that one of those reasons is that they struggle to find connectivity, and so one of the things we really wanted to try and promote through the suicide prevention work is trying to increase that connectivity for men.
Got a further communication question from Tamsin Anderson. Hi, Tamsin. Linking via social media. Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Not everybody uses social media, of course. So we have different channels, as it were. We might want a newsletter, and we have the Towards Zero newsletter that comes out. How often, Paula? Monthly. And that comes out electronically, but can also be printed off and distributed by paper. Social media connects to that, and a lot of the resources that we've talked about today, including the talks from the other days, will be on the website, and the website will be the Council. It's in the Cornwall Council website, yeah. And you would search for
Towards Zero.
Okay, so that there'll be ways for people who have got a particular interest to look for Towards Zero. But I agree. I think that social media is crucial to reaching some people, and particularly to reaching a younger demographic, but increasingly everybody. But we need to try everything, I think, to get the message across.
And Jackie Ellis, you've reminded us about something that, again, we were talking about earlier, and that is the social prescribing networks which are now available, and the social prescribing link workers who are now attached to each GP surgery, really for one of the main purposes of connecting people with what's going on around them in their local communities through the third sector. Social prescribing is absolutely vital for people who are isolated, feeling marginalised, feeling in need of finding the support that they need that isn't available on their back doorstep, or that they just don't know about. And I know social prescribing, a lot of people who are referred to social prescribers through their GP have got mental health problems, which are actually based around isolation, loneliness and being marginalised. So contacting and being in contact through the social prescribing network is absolutely key to this work. And I'd kind of quite like to try and marry us up really closely with social prescribing, the Towards Zero work and the social prescribing network, because I see that is a really key link. So there's a couple of other social prescribers online as well, which is just brilliant. So maybe that's something we can talk about outside of this. It is making those ties a little bit tighter, because I see social prescribers as a real gateway. It won't get to everybody, the same as social media won't get to everybody. So we've got to try all of these different mechanisms to offer our people in our communities every opportunity through different gateways, one of which hopefully will suit them, so that they do start to understand how to feel connected, because it is that connectivity that we really do need to keep promoting.
So picking up a question from Charlie, the challenges that some people have in accessing services really, I think, are similar to all sorts of other marginalised people. And on Monday, I was talking about one of the things that's really important about the suicide prevention work, and that is that the majority of people who end their lives are not in contact with specialist mental health services. Now, that may be because they have been in contact and they've not found it to meet their needs, or they've not been happy with the service, or it may be because they haven't felt that the service was for them. and they've failed to access the service because it's not been accessible enough. It may be that they haven't recognised that they've got a problem, or thought that it was the sort of problem that that services could fix. So specialist mental health services aren't for everyone. Not everybody needs them, but they're also not the route that some people would choose to take. And that's where I think the sort of community stuff comes in. But really, whatever service you're providing, whatever your project is, it needs to work on accessibility to all groups that may be marginalised. So whether that's as a result of the ethnic background, whether it's as a result of sexuality, whether it's as a result of having other disabilities, visible or invisible, that might make it hard for people to get help or to express themselves in terms of what help they need.
I remember hearing Dean speak last year on our panel actually about hard to reach communities. I don't know if you recall that, Dean, but it really struck me that you talked about communities being called hard to reach, but in actual fact it might be more about the methods to do that. Is that something that you remember talking about, Dean?
Dean, you're on mute.
I apologise. Yeah, I do remember saying that, and it's the stereotype of once a community's been labelled as hard to reach, by the time that's passed on, it becomes as if it's true. I don't believe anybody is hard to reach. That it's how do we reach them as services? That's rather than label individuals as hard to reach, which is what happens. It starts off again as a metric, hard to reach communities, but soon comes down to being put onto the individuals or the communities. I think it is having honest discussions on why people aren't accessing services and what might stop them, and that's not always a reflection on services. It's a reflection on we don't have that conversation collectively. There can be lots of reasons. There can be lots of reasons that people don't want to get an official diagnosis. If you're already carrying some other stigmas in life, do you really then want the label of mental health to carry along as well? And it's recognizing those stereotypes. I think it's going to be a lot easier now we've made the cultural step into going online, not so much the social media stuff, but the going online of being able to reach people through Zoom meetings and so on. That's going to make things easier. And when we reach people, it's making sure that we speak the same cultural language. And I think sometimes that is missing. And that's going to take some effort from both sides. Not that we're talking about sides. I think that's going to take some effort from both sides. And if people believe that maybe that group's not for me because I can't see anybody that looks like me, or that group didn't discuss my issues, so does that mean I can go to that group but I'm going to have to hide a part of myself? That can lead to people feeling more isolated. So I think it's a really good time to look at the stereotypes that come along with those labels like hard to reach, and I think they're old school. They don't serve any of us anymore. They become useful just as a way of talking about stuff. I think to take some time to think, what other name can we call that? What does that mean? Means that we don't have to use those anymore, because what does hard to reach mean? Do you know, we act on it, but we don't take the time to go, what does that actually mean? It's because I can be in a room with somebody and they can be hard to reach because I'm not in a position maybe to talk about grief, or I'm not in a position to talk about sexuality, or I'm not in a position to talk about racism, or I'm not in a position to talk about gambling, whatever. So I don't think people are hard to reach. I think it's those permission giving things that a person knows, oh, actually, that is about me as well. And so that's going to be an ongoing thing with all of us, and we're definitely in the right direction. I don't want anyone to feel that oh no, there's a whole lot of more work to do. Now we've got the momentum going. It's just like changes now to make sure that we include everybody and train people from different communities to be able to talk to each other as well, which is a thing I feel that is missing.
It's great that we're having this conversation, isn't it? Belinda, hello. thoughts or ideas on people with mental health challenges accessing talking therapy and counselling. I think probably, and Anne's commented below, I think maybe talking about the potential gap between the IAPT, the Improving Access to Psychological Therapies, counselling services, and specialist CMHT services. And I think essentially the extent to which people are experiencing suicidal feelings may not necessarily fall, it may be on a separate axis, if you like, to whether you're in primary care or specialist mental health services. I think that the fact that Outlook is now under the umbrella of CFT is a positive, and will mean that the pathway is clearer. And I'm aware of work already trying to harmonise some of the sort of risk management processes across, so that people won't essentially be excluded from one service or another on the basis of risk, which is clearly an ironic and potentially harmful scenario. So thanks for the question.
I think there's also a very good point there about when we're getting 1,800 referrals a week for our IAP services, it clearly demonstrates that people are out there and who do feel that they do need some element of talking therapy. And I think I know that there has been a big increase in accessibility for the talking therapies during the COVID situation. Initially, people were reluctant to come forward and needed to have those sessions done through Zooms, etc. And people were quite reluctant. I think that's now this is becoming the normal way of communicating. People are starting to pick up on some of the more digital ways of offering IAP services. And I think more and more are becoming available as the need is showing that we actually need to keep increasing. It's clearly important that we make sure that people are directed to the most appropriate support that will help them. But there is stuff available both through the statutory services and through the voluntary sector. So there is availability there. It's just a bit like Dean and Ellen were talking about. It's making sure that we make it as open and as accessible to the right people as we can. I know that I work with some of the farming community, and one of the things that they're talking about is, as a farming community, in terms of their mental well-being, they will only really feel comfortable talking with people on a professional basis who understand what it is to be within the farming community. So there's a different need for them than maybe there is for me, and it's some of those areas that maybe we need to think a little bit more innovatively. And are we actually providing accessible services, both physically accessible and sort of emotionally accessible to all the right groups of the population? But it is something that is being constantly reviewed, particularly in light of the COVID situation, and also particularly in light of the fact that we are all learning to communicate in a different way, which isn't just face to face, and we are all beginning to feel, or some of us are beginning to feel, a little bit more comfortable about sessions like this, and we may be able to use that to increase accessibility for some people to talking therapies in the future. What else have we been?
Anne's answered some questions on behalf of counselling and the regulation of counselling. So people can read that in the chat box. But there's a challenge here, I guess, because we're asking. In a sense, we're saying to people, find what works for you, find what speaks to you, find what's accessible to you, with a little bit of a caveat of saying there are certain things that do have to be regulated. There are some safety elements, I guess, of the regulation of counselling type services, and it may well depend on your need, your level of need, and your own personal choices around which setting you want to be seen in or helped by.
And I think that was one of the things which we tried to consider when we were looking at the innovation bids, is some of those alternative ways of providing support to people, which isn't the traditional, you know, one-to-one, face-to-face in a white sterile room. You know, so if you look at something like the Men Outside initiative, you know, that is clearly designed for people who don't really want to sit in a room with facing one person talking about their issues, but a group of people who clearly will still need to connect with others in a way that they find supportive. So I do think across Cornwall we have room for a million different ways of connecting people, and we need to just keep plugging away at those, keep sharing them. I would really encourage you all to direct your colleagues, your friends, your family back to the Cornwall website, Cornwall Council website, where these webinars will be there, because I put money on it. There is something for everybody in our population to take away as a golden nugget from the last 5 days webinars. People might hate 90% of them, but there'll be one message in them all which will resonate with them. I know this certainly has been for me, and the more people we can share that with, the more people will start to talk. They'll share it with other people, and it really is all about this accessibility. And I think, as Dean says, there aren't hard to reach people. We just need to think about how we do reach everybody, and it's through networks like this, and then the networks that we can link into, that can link in again, and that can link in again, and eventually we will get the Towards Zero message out there and be able to provide the right level of support and the right type of support to everybody who needs it. It's an aspiration, I know, and I know it's a big aspiration, but I have no doubt that we can do it. We just need to work together as a community.
And I think Anne's point again in the chat is really, you know, if you're watching this webinar wondering what you can do, what could I possibly do as an individual? Training. There is Assist is on hold because of difficulties with classroom teaching at the moment, but there are a range of alternative trainings again on that website, and really the goal should be that every individual in Cornwall is suicide safe trained. Every community should have somebody, every employer should have their mental health first aider as well as their physical health first aider. People could think about their own workplaces, their own clubs, their own the places that their churches, the places that they go and that they meet people, and really think about within that community who could be trained and how could that training kind of be dispersed over the whole population of Cornwall, all 500,000 plus people, so that everybody is in contact with somebody who's had some useful training.
We've just recently, I'm looking to Paula here, through the side of my eyes, but we've just recently, because Assist is on hold, and which is one of the ones that we offer free of charge through Cornwall Council, we've been looking at doing, is it called Suicide First Aid, yes, which is an online two half-day courses, and I know we've trialled it, and I know the findings from that has been really positive, hasn't it? So have we got a whole series of those now available with dates for people?
I know that there are dates available,
right,
and people can look on the Healthy Cornwall website for information about those dates, and more are to be added, and more another trainer, another deliverer is being trained at the moment to be able to support that, but it's a digital classroom for that suicide first aid, so over two half days, and again that is being supported by public health, in terms of there's no cost to the individual for the training, but there's a £15 charge for the resources that sit alongside that, and we have had feedback in the past sometimes that the 2 full days for Assist has been quite a time commitment for some people to be able to access. So we're trialling this now as a way to ensure that there is still training available for people who live and work in Cornwall, no matter what your background is. You don't need any previous experience, and you don't need to be a professional who works in a field that supports that. It's just for anyone as a member of our community to be able to have some training to know about how to have supportive conversations and know that it's okay to ask the question around suicide for someone that you're concerned about.
And there's clearly a few people online who've done it and are really grateful. And we've got Tess there, who's actually one of the people who's delivering the training. So thank you, Tess. I have no doubt that it is going to be incredibly popular. And I think it really plays to this. If we have enough people in Cornwall who feel confident enough to start conversations with people around their feelings, around their suicidal thoughts and feelings, then actually that will certainly get us a long way towards the zero aspirations, because it is about connectivity and it is about that tabooness of the subject, and it is about starting those conversations, and that's what we all need to do. So I guess just to sort of, my plea at the end of all of this is something which we all need to work together on. We've clearly got a whole host of fantastic support out there within our community sector doing really innovative ideas. We've got the safety planning initiative, which is a really simple thing that everybody could be directed towards doing. We've got brilliant specialist support for people when they do actually need some medicalised type of support, and we've got the counselling officers and the IAP training available. But it is up to everybody to spread the word, to get themselves trained, to feel confident in having those conversations, and to bring in some of those more marginalised groups of our population who we really want to include, but we need support to make sure we understand what their needs are and how to make everything really accessible. So I think we're out of time now. Thank you all very much for your participation. On the last slide there is the suicide prevention at cornwall.gov.uk comments for any comments or questions. If you go off this webinar and you think, oh God, I really wanted to ask that, please just email that and we will endeavour to get back to you. We will be putting everything onto the mental health pages at Cornwall Council, and we'll be spreading that through as many different sets of media as we can so that it becomes accessible to everybody. I'd like to personally thank particularly Paula and Ellie and Kelly who've put together this week of these webinars. It looks like it's happened totally seamlessly, but I know from various conversations that seamlessly has meant a huge amount of work from both Paula and Kelly, and I'm just so grateful to them, because I've been so bogged down with COVID stuff that I've just had to leave them to it, and feel like they have been abandoned. And Ellen, I know that you've been a huge support to them as well. So thank you everybody, and let's just keep striving towards zero, because that's where we're going to get to as Cornwall, and that's where we all want to get to. And with everybody's help, there is no reason why we can't get there. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.